know. Very impressive.
The more you know.
The more you know. Like, that was an NBC thing, by the way. The more you know. You know, like, I feel like we should bring that back for this show. Yeah, but just really, Pete, work on that. And by work on that, I mean send a note to Steven, because we know he does most of the work on the show. Just do me a favor, send him a note. Like, what we should do is just like all the dumb crap we say, and then we just need to end it with like the peacock, the NBC, and like the star and the more you know. Yeah. Just that logo.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That's right, four-man desk, because it's Wednesday. I'm Connor Rogers alongside the Popcorn Man, Jay Croucher, and Lawrence Jackson. How we doing,
Popcorn
fellas?
King.
It's Wednesday.
Let's not go too
Wednesday
far.
is free popcorn day.
It's my least favorite day of the week now.
And they found
Did
the
you like
old
some
bags
popcorn?
for
I would
you.
not. Thank
Yeah,
you.
they found the big
The
bags.
movie theater bags for you. They had downsized to the kitty size.
Yeah.
Will you be eating it the whole show, or will you
buddy.
What do you think?
like will
here
you
before.
time it out like that on purpose?
Blake will do a refill. I almost
Blake-
guarantee it.
Blake got the refills.
Yeah,
on
how
deck.
long you been
the
here,
refill
Lawrence?
guy.
What do you think?
I guess not long enough if I'm asking that question.
I like the Breaking Bad T-shirt though.
One of the
pretty cool.
one of the best shows, man. One of the best
right.
shows. Make
100%.
sure y'all go to Los Pollos Hermanos. Great chicken
all
there.
your great chicken
Great
eats.
owner there as well.
But
I'll
first,
say this.
My boy Gus
It is-
Spring might be playing quarterback for the Bears.
It might be. It is, for my money, it is the second best television series in history.
Okay, what's
It's
number
up
one?
there.
only behind The Sopranos?
Sopranos.
I'm with you.
Really?
Sopranos.
there.
Game of Thrones, if it wasn't for the last season, Game of Thrones might be there, but Game of Thrones would be third for me. But Breaking Bad is number two. With two except there's the only reason why it's not number one for me. Very quickly, two reasons, and I don't think either of these are controversial.
Yeah, I like Skylar.
Skylar's the most annoying character.
But who you telling?
Skylar is the most annoying, not intended to be annoying character of all time.
Yeah, she's not great.
Fair take. It's a very justifiable
because there are some characters like on Game of Thrones, like like Ramses, like some of them are supposed to be villains. You're supposed to hate them, right? Like I don't think you're supposed to hate Skylar, but I think most of the audience hated Skylar.
You were supposed to feel for her, but
Right.
you was like, man,
No,
go
you're just
somewhere,
yeah,
man.
exactly. Come on. Look, Walt's doing all this for the family. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And the Fly episode, I hated the Fly episode. That drove me crazy.
Because we was waiting
Which was
for
supposed
something.
to be. It was
that was
right.
the whole
And the
thing.
whole point was it was supposed to drive you crazy.
Yeah,
but
I think they
that
could have gotten rid of 20% of the Sopranos and nothing really would have changed. There's a lot of fat on the Sopranos. The dream sequence episodes.
I sort of get
in my
that.
top
I
four.
sort of get
It's in my
that.
top
And
four.
the Bears and the whole thing. I'm with you. But you know what? I don't know. Just what's your favorite TV series?
I go with The Wire 1. I go Mad Men 2, Sopranos 3, Breaking Bad 4. That's my top.
Not highly controversial.
No, it's quite short.
Throw them in a
No,
blender
you know
and
what?
pick
Very
your
short.
rankings.
The Wire's up there, but it doesn't hold up, I think, as well 20 years later or whatever. I
Disagree,
think
but
because
okay.
of the thing. And the other thing is that the least interesting character on the entire thing is McNulty, and like when the least interesting guy in your show is your lead. You know what I mean? Like
They wisely wrote him out for
I
some
know,
parts.
I know,
Yeah, the whole
but like,
season
yeah.
2.
I
I
He
mean,
was
like
out
you
of
got to
there.
admit,
He's
like
the point
McNulty
guard.
sucks.
He's the point guard. He gets
I
the ball to
know
everyone else.
McNulty
You don't need
sucks.
the point guard taking
When you watch The Wire, everyone
25
agrees
shots
with
a
me.
game.
McNulty sucks.
I mind McNulty.
All right, but yeah.
I like kicking off with some
There
general
we go.
TV
All right,
talk.
now it's a Wednesday. What
Yeah,
do you
it's a
do?
Wednesday. We don't have a lot to do. Just
No,
kidding. Yes, we
that's why we're
do.
just eating popcorn.
We have, of
Popcorn?
course, check on. I'm good.
right.
I have to do a lot of chatting today, so I'm going to pass on the popcorn. We're going to see who's eating good and if they can keep it going.
I'll tell you
of course,
who's eating good.
Headlined
This
by
kid with the
Matthew
popcorn.
Berry and C.J. Stroud with a monster weekend. But before we get to anything, including Rotoworld Player news, how about Danielle Crennan drinking free? Our colleague,
yeah.
Danielle,
Live it up.
who is drinking free because she's getting married.
She is getting married. We love Danielle. We love her new family. Very excited for her. She's a big part of what we do here.
One of the backbones of the show.
One of the backbones of the show. She puts up with us, and more importantly, when all the NBC executives say, hey, what the hell's happening over there in the happy hour? Danielle's like, no, I got it. They're fine. Don't worry about it. Don't watch the tape. It's fine. So Danielle provides a lot of cover for us as well.
Congratulations to Danielle, to Gia, and to Logan as well. Very happy.
There we go.
Danielle,
I like that.
One of the most important people of the show because she was our Vegas chaperone.
Yes.
And being our chaperone in Vegas, you deserve the highest honor that NBC can give.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I assumed that was the Vegas trip was my last week at NBC, and I think if it hadn't been for Danielle, it would have been.
Yeah, you might not even. have
She
made it
also
home.
kept us from drinking too many of them Dollaritas a couple weeks back. So
She didn't do that good job with me. I'll be honest with you.
I will never forget in Vegas after a night at Hakkasan, and Danielle and I are waiting with Connor at the bottom of the escalator, waiting for you to turn up for the Uber to take us to the set.
Yes.
And it's like minus 150 that you're going to turn up. And then you come down, and then you're coming down the escalator, and then you have a little stumble, and then Danielle's just like, oh my God. But
But the fact that you were there, the morning was won.
I mean, like we had to leave at 7 a.m. Vegas time, and Hakkasan closes at what, 4? So I mean,
I don't know if it actually closes.
Yeah,
It just
maybe
kind of
not. Anyway.
restarts
straight from the
eventually.
club, boy. That's how you do
We
it.
did have another Vegas trip. That was fun.
All right, let's jump into the Rotoworld Player
Yes.
news. And, of course, for all of your Rotoworld Player news, go to NBCSports.com. How about the Thursday Night Football injuries we're tracking? Justin Fields dealing with that thumb, although it's starting to lean like Justin Fields is going to play. We'll get into more of that in just a second here. Khalil Herbert looking like he's going to be officially back from that ankle injury as he's been practicing. Cole Kmet, I know he lost his injury designation after not practicing on Monday. And then you have DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, 2 receiving options for the Panthers, dealing with injuries of their own. But back to Justin Fields, we got to hear from offensive coordinator Luke Getsy on his status and on how the offense would differ, or if it would at all, if they moved to Fields.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll just come down to Justin, the training staff, coach, and Ryan figuring out where they want to be and all that stuff. I think when you're in this moment, you're kind of out of that conversation from my perspective.
Are you putting together game plans, like concurrent game plans, one for Agent Fields? Like, how much variance is there in what you would do based on which guy plays quarterback?
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week. I think that's the cool part about how we put this thing together at the very beginning, where we felt like we kind of put it all out there for our guys and being able to take this thing in a few different directions, and the guys feel really comfortable in doing that. So I don't think from everybody else's perspective in that room, other than the 2 quarterbacks, it's not gonna feel like it's a different game plan by any means if we go one direction or the other.
Okay. Listen, that's the most annoying. If I was a Bears fan, listen, Tyson Bagent, great story. Easy kid to root for, right? Yeah. And he's played well. Like he's exceeded expectations. The fact that he's on an NFL roster is exceeding expectations.
We love Teabag. We're a Teabag show.
We are a Teabag show. We are pro Teabag here on the Happy Hour. Make no mistake about it. We like Tyson Bagent. But the idea that an undrafted rookie free agent quarterback is the same as the guy you traded a first to go up and get in Justin Fields, either that's a massive mismanagement of resources, once again, or I just don't understand football at all. I mean, I understand that it's been inconsistent for Justin Fields, but and Tyson Bagent, because you're sort of like, come on, you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, you're watching the games like that, and it's sort of like, he's not terrible,
right.
But what? What was that?
It wasn't great.
That's like some coach speak type stuff. I guess you got to try to. I think he's doing his best to try to be respectful to all the players involved. And like you said, Tyson Bagent, he did all right. For all things considered, but just a couple of weeks before he went in the game, we had Justin Fields throwing for 4 touchdowns in consecutive weeks. So. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo to me.
By the way, but I had such a huge issue with the coach speak of that because, not for nothing, I get, you don't want to insult Tyson Bagent. All due respect, Tyson Bagent, you're the backup quarterback who is an undrafted free agent. This guy is your franchise. Justin Fields at the moment is the face of your franchise. Yeah, if you're kissing somebody's ass, it's going to be Justin Fields.
Right.
You know what I mean? Build up that guy who, by the way, Justin Fields has the ability. Because we saw it against Washington. We've seen it at various points in his NFL career. It's been inconsistent, but we've seen it at various points of his NFL career where Justin Fields has the ability to be like, guys, on my back, we're winning this game. And whether he's running 70 yards or whatever, I mean, like, he was brilliant against my Commanders. I mean, again, not hard to do, but still, like, we saw him, to Lawrence's point, the last couple of weeks. That answer drove me crazy just watching that. That was the first time I saw it. Like, that's mind-blowing to me. I think Justin Fields starts on Thursday night, by the way.
Yeah, Justin Fields, he's the franchise for 8 more games, and then it'll be Caleb Williams or Drake May, I suspect. But I think Fields will play on Thursday as well. The line on DraftKings has been moving towards the Bears. They're now 4-point favorites. Tyson Bagent's not going to be a 4-point favorite against Carolina.
He going to be the franchise for 8 more games? What if the Bears don't have the top pick?
Well, they got 2 cracks at it. Right? Carolina's pick as well.
You got the Giants.
Yeah.
You got the Cardinals.
I think the Cardinals might be okay the rest of the
I
way.
think they will too. Who else is out there?
Kyler's
wins.
fighting for his job now. Kyler's like, I'm going to win
Rams,
this.
Broncos.
Patriots.
Patriots is a
sneaky one.
They weren't a team that you thought was going to kind of be here. You didn't think they'd be 7-2, but not 2-7 either. So,
between the Bears and the Panthers, I think one of those.
So you don't think Justin Fields could, like, no matter how he play, he gone?
Not necessarily, but I would suspect if they're in a position where they can draft Caleb Williams or Drake May, then that's their guy, and you move on from Fields at that point. But Connor, you'd be more of an authority on this.
No, I agree. That regime hasn't drafted a quarterback yet, and that regime is dangerously close to being on the hot seat at best. So they, I think, will take their own crack and restart the timeline. There's some political aspects of that in the NFL, but there's also some talent aspects.
I get
it's a great quarterback class.
Yeah, it is, but there will be a lot of suitors for Justin Fields.
Sure, and it doesn't mean Fields' career is over. It's far from that.
What would he get, Connor? You get a second
I think he would get a conditional package of day 2 picks that could play up.
Yep.
It'll be based all on, you'll have 1 pick this year that could be a 3rd, but then the 2nd rounder of next year can play its way up to a 1st if he has a great season. Things like that.
You might do
with
that.
Young quarterbacks.
As Commanders fan, if it doesn't happen for Sam Hill.
So I might do that.
Something along the lines of that.
Giants might do that.
Yeah.
Giants are in trouble.
Giants, yeah. Listen, one note, though, on Thursday Night Football that is very important, especially for the success of Justin Fields. Brian Burns has a concussion. He is not expected to play. So keep that in mind if you are debating playing Fields. If he's,
that a clean
looks good for the
pocket
Bears.
Fields. I'm as a borderline top 10 play this week. I mean, again, and he'll be a QB1 for me against Carolina. It's his first game back. I get it, but listen, and Panthers have played better defensively recently, but I feel like that's more about teams' inefficiency and sort of playing down. Like, again, the rushing of Fields. In a week in which Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes and Tua Tagovailoa are out this week, I think I'd be hard pressed to be like, oh yeah, I'm not starting Justin Fields if he's back. And like you said, we expect him to be back.
Some other news and notes around the league. Will Levis will start against the Bucs. The Will Levis era is underway in Tennessee. A new era over in Los Angeles for the Rams. Carson Wentz is expected to sign with the team. I guess the Brett Rippon experiment did not last very long in the Rams' eyes for now. Over in Dallas, a return story. Martavis Bryant with the Cowboys. Martavis Bryant has not played in almost half a decade at this point. James Conner designated to return from IR. So some big news for those of you that have been understandably holding on to James Conner if you get him back.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
Anything chime in on those?
No, I was going to say a couple of things. So Will Levis is not only the starter this week. He started the rest of the season.
That era is underway.
The quote from Vrabel, quote, I think there's clearly something there. We want to be able to continue to work with him and progress and develop and win, and that's how you get better. So Will Levis, this is the right move for them. It's probably not their season, and so see what you have in the kid. Ryan Tannehill will be the backup when he's back fully healthy. Much respect to Tannehill, who had a great career in Tennessee, and I think he still has some football left.
Oh, yeah.
He'll have a job next year somewhere else, would be my expectation. But this is the right move for Tennessee. So hats off to both Tannehill, and I'm excited for Will Levis, who, I'm a fan of. It's worth noting, by the way, Treylon Burks is in the concussion protocol. He's not expected to play this week, at least as we sit here today.
Yeah, not sure why they didn't trade Tannehill. I guess they just wanted him.
Maybe it's because he wasn't healthy and they couldn't.
Yeah,
some money reasons too.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's a little weird that Tannehill's just going to be sitting there not doing much because he could help a lot of teams. Carson Wentz as well.
Jets.
Yeah, he could help the Jets. Another guy who could help the Jets.
I heard you have a little chuckle when you read off Carson Wentz. Was that the most funny thing you saw on that screen there? Because there was another guy who he ain't played no NFL ball in what?
It's
5 years.
But that was our craziest graphic of the season, by the way. The Carson Wentz Martavis Bryant blender graphic.
So, two things very quickly on Martavis Bryant. Like, why not? Like, again, he's only like, what did you say? He's 26 or something like that?
He's got to be older than that, but
he's young. That's
he's 31.
No, he is not.
31, yeah.
He hasn't played in the NFL since 2018.
He's 31. He's 31?
Yeah.
I thought he was young.
There was, I cannot
Everyone
remember.
looks young to me.
I cannot remember the name of this XFL player, but he tweeted something when Martavis Bryant got signed, and he basically was like pissed off. He was like, here go the politics. Then he put their stats up, and his stats blew Bryant's out the water. And you just spoke about politics could play into things, and that's probably a good example. Martavis Bryant had 14 receptions last season in the XFL, but, I guess, if at some point you played in the NFL.
Name recognition.
Yeah, a certain team needs a possible deep ball threat.
Let's be clear.
And Dallas has done this before. They did it with Aldon Smith a couple years ago, and he had been out for 5 years as well. So no shock that Dallas is the team that done it.
Martavis Bryant is a great name. Like let's just as names go.
That too.
Dropping popcorn.
I'm a little bit.
It's good to know when you're washed up, you have a home in Dallas with the Cowboys. I don't know what you'd be doing there, but they'll bring you in.
Yeah.
Oh, Barry hasn't been on TV in 5 years, but
might be next year.
Here he
next
is,
week.
wheel him out.
Might be next week. Welcome to the Cowboys pregame show. I'm Matthew Barry.
That'd be great.
Dallas Cowboy Radio.
Yeah. How about them Cowboys?
Oh, man.
All right, so the other thing two last things. Again, James Conner was a top 20 fantasy running back before he went down. I think this is exciting news for the Cardinals. We're going to talk about that game a little bit later in the show here, but you see the quote here from Darren Urban, who covers the team, has done it for years. The Arizona Cardinals designate running back James Conner to return from IR, opening his practice window. It's possible the Cardinals will have both Conner and Kyler Murray back in this offense Sunday against Lawrence Jackson's Falcons. I put in the Lawrence Jackson piece. Darren did not tweet that.
Well, he forgot that.
It's Lawrence Jackson's Cardinals, because I'm taking the Cardinals money line.
I like that bet.
Fired it up.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
The other thing about Carson Wentz, hopefully Conner comes back, and I think if he comes back, he's immediately a top 20 play. You're excited about that. And my guess is that he will come back and play this week. Because this is right in the timeline. The one last thing I want to say about Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz isn't good.
Man.
Stop it. I didn't like that move when the Commanders. Go back and watch my tweets.
You kept on saying he's a professional quarterback.
He is, but that's what I'm about to say again.
Yeah.
He is a professional quarterback, and for fantasy purposes, this feels more about depth. That they felt like Carson Wentz was an upgrade over Brett Rippon, which I agree with. I don't know if this means that Stafford's injury is worse than we feared. They're on a bye this week, so we have time. But I think if Stafford's injury is worse than we fear, this is good news that Carson Wentz comes in. He's got 2 weeks to get up to speed on this offense. And look, Carson Wentz, you don't want Carson Wentz as an NFL quarterback because he's bad in the locker room. Like, none of his teammates like him. And he's a turnover machine, a whole thing. But he is Jay's just looking at me. Get a shot at Jay. Look at what Jay's sitting here, give me,
he was holding it really well.
Jay's giving me, eyes that are like, really?
Carson Wentz, man.
All I'm saying is, for us in the world of fantasy football, what do we care about? Can somebody get the ball to Cooper Kupp? Can he get the ball to Puka Nacua? Maybe Tyler Higbee? And can they keep the offense efficient enough so that the running game has somewhere to go, whether it's Darrell Henderson or Kyron Williams, maybe he comes back after the bye. And my argument is that Carson Wentz can do all those things, that he's a professional quarterback. There will be some head-scratching turnovers. He's not going to be beloved in the locker room. He's probably not going to be invited to breakfast with Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. But
Cooper Kupp a nice guy. He might invite him.
First time. And
then he'll see how he is. He's like,
hey, guys, where's breakfast?
Couple Bible verses later.
Leave him on red. But I do think that Carson Wentz is an upgrade over Brett Rippon, and I do think he has supported fantasy-relevant wide receivers throughout his career, Carson Wentz, and he was actually good in fantasy at points for the Commanders last year. He was at the beginning of the year because they were throwing a ton.
He was decent on the Colts the year before.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he's not on our team, Connor, the New York Jets. I think that'd be a playoff team.
Considering how well Joe Douglas knows him, I think that says more about Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that might be right.
But
again, that is the word on him. Is just he's just not a great guy. He's not a great locker room guy. He's not a great leader of men, which is what you want from the quarterback position. But for us in the world of fantasy football, that's Sean McVay's problem. If he's out there, I think I think you feel better about your shares of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp today than you did yesterday before the signing.
I agree.
I'll just leave it at that.
Let's move over to Who's Eatin Good, served by Applebee's. Applebee's is doing their part to honor those who have served our country on Veterans Day. So for the 16th straight year, all veterans and active duty military can enjoy a free meal this Saturday at your nearest Applebee's. Choose from multiple popular entrees, including a chicken tender platter or a 6-ounce top sirloin, and add to the over 11 million meals Applebee's has contributed. So, well done, Applebee's, by the way. Well done. Who's Eatin Good?
I salute that. That's great. I don't think there's ever, you can't do too much. You can't over-support our veterans, our military, by the way, also their families, their loved ones, past and present. You cannot do that too much. So much love to Applebee's. Appreciate that, I did not serve, but I had many family members who did, and, anyway, I appreciate that from Applebee's. That's very cool. May I suggest the riblets and the Dollaritas?
Surprised you passed on the chicken tender platter. I think they made that for you in the ad read.
Well, my point is that if everyone else eats the riblets, more chicken tenders for me.
Scheming.
Duh.
Scheming.
I'm playing chess while you're playing checkers over here, Connor.
That's kind of how the show goes. I'm always one step behind.
I'm just saying.
All right.
Oh, boy.
Who better to start with, Lawrence, on Who's Eatin Good than C.J. Stroud right now? And after a weekend where he comes away with almost 42 fantasy points, Stroud has been an absolute monster, especially at home for a rookie quarterback this season. And for Barry, he comes in as QB6 this week. Do you agree that Stroud can stay hot and be a QB1?
Yeah, I got him at quarterback 5, actually. And we all liked them last week in the matchup versus Tampa. I don't know if we liked them this much. When you put up numbers like this, it doesn't matter who you play. The numbers are the numbers. That shot him up to quarterback 3 on the season on a points per game basis. It's his first game with 20 fantasy points since week 4. And the 2 games before that, he didn't even throw the ball 30 times. So I think now they're just going to get back to that volume passing offense. Not a great running team. Now you go up against the Bengals, who've been the 31st best or the second to least best passing defense since week 6. So they could definitely do something there. So I like them to eat good versus the Bengals. I like him to eat good going forward. By far, obviously, he's in the seat for Rookie of the Year. And if he beats the Bengals, if they win this game, right, Texans go to 5-4. The Bengals will have 4 losses as well, right? So, do we start talking about a rookie quarterback for MVP? If you go on the road to Cincinnati, beat Joe Burrow and them who've been hot, and you come away with the win, if they win, it's going to be because C.J. Stroud was a dog again. So do we talk about that if they get that W?
I don't think he's going to win MVP over guys like Mahomes and Lamar, but I think he could absolutely get on the ballot.
Just in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. He could be a top 5 MVP candidate by year's end. And the thing with Stroud, and it's been this way all season, when you give him a clean pocket, he is as good as anyone. And with Tunsil back, with Titus Howard back, they have more just weapons on the offensive line. They keep him clean. And when he goes up against teams that don't have a pass rush, he just eviscerates them. Now, the Bengals have Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. They have a decent pass rush, but I think Stroud should still have success. And he's just a lock. You just have to start him every single week now.
Right. He comes in at QB6 for me this week as well. And I don't think anyone drafted C.J. Stroud to be their starting quarterback in fantasy this year. Now, maybe you've been using him because you lost Kirk Cousins, what have it. But chances are you have another viable quarterback on your team. And what I'm telling you here, and I've been saying this a while, for C.J. Stroud, do I think 470 and 5 touchdowns every week? Of course I don't. But do I think he's a viable QB1 the rest of the way? Absolutely. To your point, Lawrence, they can't run the ball. And their defense, while it's shown improvements, it's still, teams can move the ball against them, so they're having to throw to keep up in games, and it's clearly that they are willing to be aggressive, especially given the fact of how well Stroud has played, how well Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz have all come together. They have weapons. So, based on the success, you expect this to keep coming. I will say this. When he's played at home this year, he's averaging 24.8 fantasy points per game. 3 of his next 4 are at home. He's got the tough game on the road at Cincinnati, but to your point, the Bengals are 24th against the pass over the last month. So it's not as scary a matchup as you might think on paper. 3 of the next 4 opponents, are Arizona, Jacksonville, and Denver. Those are the 3 home games after this Bengals game. They're all bottom 10 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So C.J. Stroud is somebody who should not only remain a top 10 fantasy quarterback, but gives you some flexibility if you don't have a tight end, if you need help at running back, if you're looking for another 2 wide receiver. I would have no problem trading a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a Justin Herbert, one of these elite guys, a Mahomes. I would have no problem trading one of those guys and just rolling with C.J. Stroud as my quarterback the rest of the way.
Because you'll get more for those bigger name guys.
Correct.
Right? Yes.
I think he is a top 10 fantasy quarterback the rest of the way.
I'm in that exact situation. That's why I just said something about it. Yeah, I actually have Lamar and C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud was sitting nicely on that bench while my boy Lamar didn't get me no touchdowns. But, maybe I'll consider that.
C.J. Stroud's been better than Lamar the last couple of weeks. I mean, and I get it because Stroud was QB 15 over the previous 3 games coming into that game against Tampa Bay. But still, Lamar has been a much better real-life NFL quarterback recently than he has been a fantasy quarterback, and he's the bigger name. You'll get more in the trade market for Jackson than you will Stroud.
Yeah, I might also go the other way too, where I think Lamar's about to explode statistically because they don't have an easy game the rest of the season. They have the hardest schedule in football, and he's going to have to start doing Lamar stuff the rest of the year, I think. So I think that he's going to explode, and someone who might have Lamar as their quarterback is like, is this guy just going to be playing in blowouts and putting up 180 passing yards and no touchdowns? That's not going to happen.
By the way, I'm in the middle. I'm doing Matthew stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think those thoughts are inconsistent with the other ones.
Yeah.
What we're saying is if you have C.J. Stroud and somebody
you'll
else,
get more regardless.
Yep.
You'll get more with a bigger name quarterback than you will Stroud. And we're saying Stroud is in that level of being a viable QB1 the rest of the way. And I don't mind the idea of trying to buy low on Lamar Jackson for sure.
We've had a similar conversation on this show recently about our next one in Rachaad White, who comes in as a top 15 running back for Barry this week. White, Jay, has simply been an extremely effective receiving back, and that's set his floor when you combine the volume week in and week out.
Connor, Rachaad White doesn't have a single rush this season of over 16 yards. He's had 112 carries and not one has gone for more than 16 yards. So when I look at things that are unsustainable in terms of rushing production, I look at what Justin Fields did last year, where he just kept on ripping off 70-yard touchdown runs for fun. That's not sustainable. What Rachaad White is doing, I think, is sustainable because it's just sheer volume and it's working the passing game. So I think Rachaad White is here to stay. I think that the fact that he had this massive game while averaging 3.7 yards per carry is very symbolic. And look, he's not going to be super exciting. It's going to be ugly, but he just gets so many receptions and gets that work that he's just going to provide value.
Just to give some stats that echo exactly what you're saying in terms of volume, 80% of the snaps through the last 4 games. In terms of passing game involvement, at least 4 receptions and 45 receiving yards in all 3 of his previous games as well, where he's been the 7th best running back in fantasy.
Yep.
Last 3 weeks, he's the 7th best running back in fantasy. I'm at running back 13 this week. You don't love the matchup with Tennessee. Titans have played really good defense, but again, those short passes, that Alvin Kamara, that cheap Alvin Kamara type stuff that just keeps you afloat, is in play for Rachaad White.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Lawrence, too, is that so he's been targeted 34 times in the passing game. He has 33 receptions. These are not complicated routes that he might just drop a few. No, they're just all dump-offs. They're all dump-offs, and so he catches every single one of them, basically.
Yeah, and if you, again, like I said, volume is key. His season high for rushing yards is only 73. You don't love that for any starting running back, but he had a season high 24 touches in this matchup in Week 9 versus Houston. So you have to kind of just picture hey, what if he doesn't score a touchdown or he doesn't score 2 touchdowns? Well, you could kind of lean on, well, hell, he's going to give me 5 receptions and maybe one of them he'll break away like he did versus Houston, which it'll be harder to do versus Tennessee, who they face next, and San Francisco. But just trust the volume like we do with Tony Pollard.
And the key is, if he gets 5 reception dump-offs for 1 yard apiece, that's just as good as a Derrick Henry 50-yard rush. They all count the same. And so in PPR, he's a monster.
Exactly. Yeah. Our final one here, Matthew, Jahan Dotson, who slow start to the season, but Washington throws the ball at an insane rate. And over the last couple of weeks, the volume has returned for Dotson.
He has. The concern here on Dotson is that the volume has returned because Curtis Samuel's been out, right? He didn't play in Week 9. He played under 20% of the snaps in Week 8 before he left with an injury. And in those games, he's gotten 14 slot targets, which is where Samuel lines up a lot. So he's basically taking a lot of the volume that Curtis Samuel's had. Curtis Samuel might be back this week, and so that's the concern. The positives here is that while he's gotten more work over the last 3 games, 8 targets at least in each of the last 3 games where he's averaging 17 fantasy points per game, he's produced. He's been producing, right? He's getting targets and he's producing. As we said, he's averaging 17 points. My only concern, though, is 2 things. What if Curtis Samuel comes back this week? And also, you don't love the matchup with Seattle since week 4. Seahawks allow the 4th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receiver. It's a really strong secondary there. That said, their defense is so bad, and they can't run the ball, so they have to keep throwing. I mean, I feel like the easiest bet in betting, Jay, over the last month has just been the over on whatever Sam Howell's passing attempts are.
100%. And by virtue of that as well, the over on Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson's receiving yards, because I think a really key thing here is that it seemed like in the Philly game, the Commanders made a conscious decision. It was like, all right, we're using our tight ends more. We're just getting more protection for Sam Howell, and we're using these 2 guys on the outside. And there's such a concentration to those 2 wide receivers that I think that Jahan Dotson, who was looking pretty dicey for at the start of the year, I think he's back as a guy who's going to give you 60, 65 yards and a chance of a touchdown each week.
The only concern is Curtis Samuel, and does Eric Bieniemy go, hey,
Yeah, Curtis Samuel, 3 of his last 4 games, he had at least 7 targets, right? So there is some worry, but he hasn't had games like the last 2 that Jahan Dotson has provided. And going back to their passive value, Sam Howell's thrown it 41 times in 5 of the last 6 games. The last 3 games, he's averaging 46 attempts. So I think you can welcome back Curtis Samuel in open arms. I don't think they'll ever have a game again where it's 8 dudes getting 5 receptions. I think it's crazy after seeing what Dotson has done the past 2 weeks.
Hopefully, to your point that Eric Bieniemy says, okay, yeah, we're done with the Byron Pringle, Jamison Crowder.
This was our first-round pick.
They was eating good for a week.
Exactly. John Dotson was a first-round pick.
Pringle's back in the box, please.
Yes. There we go, Jay.
Look at Jay. Look at Jay.
Little giggle from Blake in the background.
Yeah, when you mention Pringles, makes me hungry.
Okay. That's a wrap on Who's Eatin Good, served by Applebee's. Obviously, these guys think that good things ahead still for C.J. Stroud, Rachaad White, and we'll keep an eye on Jahan Dotson with more Curtis Samuel in the future. The appetizer for fantasy football pregame on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. with Matthew J. Lawrence and Michael Smith is Big Ten Saturday night. Watch number 1 Ohio State continue their quest for a college football playoff berth when they host Michigan State at the Horseshoe. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. We're taking
Ohio State's favored by 4 touchdowns. I don't think that's enough. By the way, I think my favorite team in college football is whoever's playing Michigan State. Let's go Buckeyes!
There we go. We're taking our first break. When we're back, of course, a little start, sit with Keep It Open or Close It Out.
Obviously, I want to be better, for this team, for this organization, just taking care of the ball in some crucial parts of the games. That's the NFL, man. It comes down to it. You're not going to just blow teams out every week. You take care of the ball and you got to play good team football. And that's where I'm at with that. But in terms of you have 3 losses, and as a quarterback, you take a lot. I take that on myself, where I could be better for this team and helping us win. To have a loss like that, it hurts. Now we have to wait 14 days to play our next game for our next shot, our next opportunity, and it hurts. We have a bad taste in our mouth. But at the same time, it's like, man, this is going to be a good time for us to do some reflection, and I think all of us are really hungry for the second half in this stretch that's about to go down. So we'll be ready for it.
Of a little start or sit, and that was Brock Purdy talking about the upcoming matchup out of the bye week against Jacksonville. So we will start right there with Brock Purdy. I mean, the question right now here, Barry, after 3 straight games with 1 or fewer touchdown passes, is Purdy still a startable quarterback for you?
He is, and you know what I'm going to do, Jay? What's your name? Connor. I was going to say James because James Connor. Or Connor.
Sure. Whatever you got to talk
I missed the
through.
pre-show meeting where we introduced ourselves. Connor, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to keep it open. Yeah. That's the premise of the segment. Connor forgot to mention that.
I intro it every single time while you're on your phone. Every single week you're on your phone, I intro the segment.
But you know what you should do?
What should I do?
What should you do? You should go.
I don't know. I honestly don't know what else I could do.
You should tap me and get me out of my phone.
No.
I'm dealing with stuff behind the scenes. I'm moving and shaking.
But 1 out of every 20, you bring some injury news to the table. So out of that 1 out of 20%, I have to let it go because you might be like, the Fantasy Life app, Justin Fields is playing Thursday night.
Now you done said it. He don't have to say it now because you already said it.
Exactly. I'm keeping it open.
All right. Good.
I'm keeping it open. Here's the thing on Brock Purdy. I'll give you some stats here. First up, we expect out of the bye the two things that were missing prior to no Trent Williams, no Deebo Samuel. Both guys should be back, right? I mean, Trent Williams very important, obviously, for that offensive line. I think he's still the best left tackle in football. Deebo getting back, that will help as well. It's a decent matchup against the Jags, who allow the 3rd most passing yards per game, 6th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks as well. They have a good defense, but it's not like an impenetrable defense as well. And so, yeah, for me, Brock Purdy, he comes in at QB 11 for me. I'm going to trust in the system. I'm going to trust that they took the bye week to get everything right. I'm a believer in Kyle Shanahan. Give me Brock Purdy as a top 12 play today, or this week, I should say. I'm keeping it open. Connor Rogers.
Lawrence, where does Purdy come into your rankings?
You should be trusting the system. I got him at quarterback 14. That's still borderline quarterback 1. I'm keeping it open.
In a 14-team league,
Yeah. And in a 16-team league,
yes,
too. And in a
20-team league.
Jacksonville has allowed
smiling somewhere.
Jacksonville has allowed a 300-yard passer in 3 of their last 4 games. Some of those quarterbacks, Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, and Josh Allen did that, of course. So you see what Brock Purdy was able to do against the Bengals. He threw for 365 there. He just had the interceptions with it. He takes away those interceptions this week against the Jags. We keeping it open.
I think the sneaky thing with Brock Purdy as well is he carried the ball 6 times for 57 yards against the Bengals, and he had this run the week prior against the Vikings where he ran it for 17 on the outside. And it was like this flashbulb moment. I was like, is Brock Purdy really fast? And it felt like Kyle Shanahan kind of leaned into that against the Bengals. And so I think that adds another dimension as well, the fact that he can tuck it and run. But the main thing is that he was playing like an MVP candidate against the Vikings. Then he gets concussed on the QB sneak and he throws 2 picks. He's playing amazingly against the Bengals. Then his head hits the turf. He reaches for his head, a really bad hit. Then he throws 2 picks. So I don't know, maybe just concussions are really bad and he shouldn't be playing football with a concussion. And he came back up to 6 days of the concussion against the Vikings. So I think Brock Purdy will be fine, and I think he'll be back to a startable quarterback.
Our next one here in James Cook, who we've talked a lot about on this show lately, not even because Leonard Fournette was signed to the practice squad, but just for James Cook's usage, Jay, and his production going downhill as well. Barry has him as RB21 this week because he does have the Broncos.
Yeah, it's a favorable matchup against the Broncos. Now, all the Broncos' stats are skewed because they gave up, 8 touchdowns to Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert and 1 million yards, but they have turned the corner a little bit. Yep. Still, James Cook, he's the number 1 running back for now unthreatened by Latavius Murray and Leonard Fournette in a Josh Allen offense, an offense that is still elite. And I think the fact that they only scored 18 against the Bengals, like Dalton Kincaid fumbled, they had more points there for them. This is a top 5 offense in the NFL, and James Cook is still its number 1 running back. So for me, I'd be keeping it open on James Cook.
Barry, single-digit fantasy points in 4 of his past 5 games. Can you see some kind of rebound here?
Not really. Like, again, I'm a running back 21. So I think he's a flex play this week. When you think about the guys that are on bye or they're banged up, and he's going to get 12 to 14 touches on a very good offense. So he's a flex play. But I will tell you that I'm in it. Ideally, you're using a wide receiver in your flex, assuming you're playing PPR or half PPR. Like, I will just tell you, like, in one league, I'm in a 12-team half PPR league with all my college buddies, and my top 3 running backs in that league are Ken Walker, Aaron Jones, and James Cook. It's a keeper league. And I'm starting Jones and Walker this week, and I'm using a wide receiver at my flex spot because I don't want to deal with James Cook, who's played under 60% of the snaps in 3 of the last 4 games. He has only 33% of the Bills' touches inside the 10-yard line this entire season. And you mentioned, Jay, I think you bring up a great point about how all the metrics on the Denver defense are completely skewed by that crazy 70-point Miami game. Last 4 weeks, the Broncos are top 12 in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. So they've actually played better. They shut down Isaiah Pacheco. Like, they played better. They're coming out of the bye as well. So Cook, again, to your point, Connor, about, the single-digit fantasy points and for the past 5, I'm closing it out on him but I'd get it if you use him as a flex. Again, I haven't ranked as a flex play, but I'm ideally looking elsewhere if I can and not using him this week.
Lawrence, do you think we're inching closer to Leonard Fournette factoring into this backfield?
100%. And it's because, James Cook isn't having these blow-up games. He hasn't had 15 carries in a game since week 3, and he's not getting that type of receiving usage like a Rachaad White or an Alvin Kamara. If he got that, you could get by. I'm going to close it out this week for that reason. You guys mentioned that Denver's defensive rushing stats are kind of messed up by the Dolphins going off of them. Not only they shut down Pacheco twice within 3 weeks.
That's correct.
They stopped Green Bay, from running the ball on them. And I just think, the Denver team as a whole is just playing better. So I'm going to keep it closed this week in part because Leonard Fournette, he coming.
Right. Like, when he's not scoring touchdowns, he's not catching passes, you're just sort of like, what?
What do you do here?
What do you do there? You're hoping for a big play.
Maybe a stupid comment, but Connor, is he just not that fast? Like, he just doesn't seem super explosive.
He's always been quicker than fast.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to break these big explosive runs. It's always just grinding out 5-6 yard carries when it goes well.
And they're not an overly effective running team. It's just not their DNA.
Never has been. With Josh Allen there.
No.
Don't understand it.
No, and that's why they brought in Leonard Fournette.
And they have a good O-line this year. So I don't get it.
Yeah, it's weird. But you know what? I mean, it used to be just sort of Stephon Diggs and then Josh Allen do something crazy. But now we've seen some Gabe Davis. Obviously, we've seen Dalton Kincaid emerge. They now have more weapons. They don't need to rely on him as well. It's been a tough couple of weeks for the Cook brothers.
Lawrence, we talked a lot about with Jahan Dotson how often the Commanders throw. But for Brian Robinson, as much as that's caused his volume to go down, he has scored in 2 of his last 3 weeks. Is this one that you can keep open?
No, I'm still going to close it out. He's touchdown or bust, and it's crazy to think that he could score a touchdown, and there's a possibility he still may not get you double-digit fantasy points. In Week 9, it was the first time he had more than 10 carries since Week 4. Seattle is allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs over the past 3 weeks, but again, I think this is going to turn into a situation where Commanders are doing what they do, throw the ball. I'm closing it out.
He scored to your point, Lawrence, he scored last week against the Patriots, right? He got a touchdown. And he ended the week with 12.7 fantasy points. He was running back 22. Even with a touchdown, he was outside the top 20. Tough, and that was against New England, a game in which Washington not only won, but was in the game the entire way. It wasn't like they had some crazy comeback that was all they did throw a ton, but they were never being blown out by the Patriots. Now they go to Seattle, which prior to last week, the Seahawks were averaging to 3.1 yards per carry to running backs. Just a bad day at the office for the Seahawks on the road at Baltimore. But now Seattle's back home in Washington State. And so, I don't know. The problem with Robinson is they're not using him in the pass game. We saw some flashes of that beginning of the year, but that's evaporated. It's been more Antonio Gibson in the passing game, and they are throwing a ton. They actually lead the NFL in pass rate this season. Over 70% of the time they're throwing the ball. So Robinson, who has under 15 touches in 6 of the past 7 to me, I'm closing it out. I have it running back 27. He needs a touchdown to even be viable because without a touchdown, he's averaging 8.4 fantasy points per game. I love the kid, as you know. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. It's an unbelievable story, but just the way this offense is going in this matchup on the road at Seattle, it's hard for me to trust him in fantasy this week.
Our next one, Jay, Chuba Hubbard. He's got 37 touches in his past 2 games, but Chicago's defense that has been good against running backs in fantasy, they also add in Montez Sweat to the fold right now. This is a tough, short week for Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, closing it out on Chuba Hubbard. I don't know how this has happened, but the Bears have the single most efficient run defense in the NFL and the second least efficient pass defense. So if ever there was a pass funnel team, and look, Bryce Young's probably not going to drop back to throw 50 times, but maybe he should. And so I think that with Hubbard, the fact that I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball, the fact that Miles Sanders is getting back involved, Matthew's man, Raheem Blackshear, even got a carry against Indianapolis. So I'm closing it out on Chuba Hubbard.
No running backs ran for more than 35 yards or scored a rushing touchdown in 3 straight games against the Bears. And those running backs was Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, and Josh Jacobs, all much better players at this point than Chuba Hubbard. I'm closing it out.
I'll also close it out here. One concern is these short weeks. This is anecdotal, but you saw my
getting through the popcorn.
No, we don't.
Yeah, it's popcorn week.
Colonel gets stuck in
I thought Lawrence had one more sentence in him, so I was gonna, I mistimed that.
I did it on purpose.
Keep him on his
Very
toes.
down.
I knew you were gasping.
You're smart. Here's what I'll say. I I feel like this is more anecdotal than anything, but just on those short weeks, after a big, Hubbard got a decent workload last weekend for the Carolina Panthers. You saw Miles Sanders get more involved than he was the week before. And so on a short week, after a big workload, I feel like you see Miles Sanders more involved this week than he was last week, just because Hubbard got so much work. And again, it's just such a quick turnaround for running back specifically as well. I mean, he's had 37 touches the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, certainly we saw that I remember when the Niners played the Giants on Thursday night. It's like, oh, welcome in Elijah Mitchell. Christian McCaffrey, you can, play 70% or whatever, and then Mitchell gets some carries.
Right.
Jay, our next one in Hollywood Brown, under 8 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, but we know the story here is that he's got his guy back in Kyler Murray.
Yep, he'll be the number 1 receiving option for Kyler Murray, who is an elite fantasy quarterback, and they will be throwing. Falcons also have a really good rushing defense too. So, I mean, Josh Dobbs was able to attack them through the air, not knowing any of his teammates' names or any of the plays. So I suspect that Kyler Murray will be able to take advantage of Marquise Brown, so I'm keeping it open there.
Nice matchup with the Falcons as well, as over the last 4 weeks, Atlanta allowing the 6th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I think they move him around enough to avoid A.J. Terrell as well. And to your point about just getting a ton of looks, 40% target share last week. He's got an almost 30% target share for the season. He's got a 28% target share on the year. Just to give you some comparisons, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 28% target share. Adam Thielen, 28% target share. Like, that's the kind of volume Marquise Brown has seen this entire year in that offense, and now he's finally got, a superstar quarterback throwing him the ball. So, yeah, I'm keeping it open on Hollywood Brown. He's going to make my love list and others receiving votes when that comes out later this week. And it's worth noting, by the way, as we talked about at the top of the show, James Conner, we're hoping he gets back as well. Prior to the injury, he was averaging almost 14 fantasy points per game, basically 17 touches a game. An effective run game will help open up things for Kyler Murray in that passing offense as well.
For George Pickens, only 3 receptions in his past 2 games. And Lawrence, really since Deontay Johnson has been back, Kenny Pickett also has had his struggles of his own. George Pickens' production has fallen off in this offense. I'm
going to close this one out as well on Pickens. Deontay Johnson's back, and he's not just back, he's consistent. Had games of 79, 85, and 90 receiving yards. Furthermore, the Packers' defense has only allowed 6 receiving touchdowns this year to wideouts, and I just don't see, this Pittsburgh offense is the type of offense where, we going out there and starting 2 receivers for fantasy. You want to start the receiver and the one that they manufacture targets for, and that's Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, Jay, it just seems like it's an offense that can only maintain 1 productive fantasy receiver right now.
Yeah, particularly when I don't think Tomlin wants to overexpose Kenny Pickett, and they will run the ball if there is a game script to be able to do that. And Deontay Johnson, he's clearly asserted that he is the guy in this offense.
I've closed it out as well. He's my wide receiver 34. Also a tough matchup. Packers, 6 fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers this year.
Back to Thursday Night Football, Matthew. DJ Moore against the Panthers, of course. DJ Moore, 3 straight games under 60 receiving yards, but you probably have to roll with the level of talent he has, and maybe the return of Justin Fields helps.
Yeah, look, we talked about this earlier in the show. Again, certainly DraftKings, given the line, DraftKings expects Justin Fields to play. We expect Justin Fields to play. We'll find out if that's official, but assuming Justin Fields, who I have ranked this week as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, assuming Justin Fields is starting on Thursday night for Chicago, I'm keeping it open on DJ Moore. I have him at wide receiver 25. Look, whether it's Justin Fields or Tyson Bagent, he's had a 24% target share, at least 6 targets in 7 out of the 9 games so far this year for DJ Moore. So revenge game for DJ Moore against the Carolina Panthers. He wants to show up and show out, show his former team, hey, this is what it looks like when I get into the end zone. I know you never threw it to me when I was in the end zone when I was here, but this is what it looks like. So, give me DJ Moore. I'm keeping it open on DJ.
Wide receiver 46 since losing Justin Fields. He was wide receiver 4 with Justin Fields. So with the expectation that Justin Fields will be back, we will keep it open, yes, on DJ Moore. Big game coming if Justin Fields is back.
To recap, keep it open, close it out with Barry's rankings involved here. Brock Purdy comes in as QB11. That was an open. James Cook, RB21. That's a close. Brian Robinson, RB27. As we talked about, very touchdown dependent, and that might not be enough. That's a close. Chuba Hubbard, a close at RB30. Hollywood Brown, the return of Kyler Murray. Keep that one open. Wide receiver 22. George Pickens, the production has fallen off a cliff recently. That's a close at wide receiver 34. And with the return of Justin Fields, DJ Moore stays open as wide receiver 25. With that, we will take our last break. When we're back, It's last call. We got a little early line alert. Some of the sides and totals that have caught our eye going into Week 10. On DraftKings Sportsbook this season, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Download the app and use the promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. How about a little early line alert as we sit in and check out the sides and totals on this Wednesday? Jay, what's caught your eye?
So what's caught my eye, Connor, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have a controversial take. I think the Steelers might be good the rest of the season. They've not been good to this point. They've been outgained in every single game, but they are 5-3 through the magic of Mike Tomlin. Sneaky little stat, since week 3, Kenny Pickett is the 11th ranked quarterback by PFF grade. I don't think he's that good, but he's been better than the first 2 weeks where he was a complete disaster. He's only thrown one interception since week 3, so I think he's getting better. Minka Fitzpatrick might be back, Cam Hayward back, Deontay Johnson being integrated into the offense, and I just think that they're more than 3 points better than a Packers team that just has no hope on offense at the moment.
Broderick Jones has helped their offensive line a lot.
Joey Porter's asserted himself as CB1.
Good rookie class for the Steelers.
I don't think Kenny Pickett's the 11th best quarterback.
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it was just that part. Everything else sounds good.
Everyone, I think PFF, they're really smart and they do a lot of good work, but every once in a while I'll hear a grade from them. I'm like,
I think what it speaks to is he's not making mistakes as much.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what really kills the grade. Lawrence, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at I'm looking at taking the Cardinals money line here. Falcons -1.5. They've been favorite their last 2 games. Lost both of them. Cardinals getting back both Kyler Murray and James Conner. I think the Falcons' good defense is just starting to become a narrative at this point with how they've played recently.
Lawrence Moneyline Jackson.
Yeah, Lawrence Moneyline Jackson. I got 2 for you. First off, how about the Cowboys as 16.5-point favorites against the Giants? I think that's too small. Cowboys have scored 30 points in every home game this season. They have a 26% average, 26-point average margin of victory at home so far this year. Giants have scored 10 points or fewer in 4 straight games. Brian Daboll came out and said Tommy DeVito's starting again. I don't know. The Cowboys' offense is playing really well, and their defense has been elite all season. I don't know how the Giants move the ball or how they stop Dallas. 16.5 feels way too low for me.
Feels like 34-6.
Yes, it feels like a butt kicking here. You got one?
I do have one. I'm looking at the Niners coming out of the bye week. They are favored by now 3 points against Jacksonville. This team's going to be rested. They're going to be healthy. Shanahan's 3-3 out of the bye, but I think this is a little different with a healthy Brock Purdy, a healthy offensive line.
Season on the line for San Francisco.
It's a big game.
Yes,
Statement win for the Niners.
It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Congratulations to Danielle, from Jay, Lawrence, Connor, myself. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.